claim is that we live under a matriarchy, not a patriarchy.
Why is Amazon paying me $600 a day? Because I use Amazon AI.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Princella, the Queen Maker.
I love that.
So you say we live in a matriarchy.
Right.
Can you give me the definition of patriarchy?
Yes. Well, the patriarchy is the idea that the system, our system in America, is being run by men, and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it. And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
Okay.
Hi, Marjorie. Welcome to Marjorie with Purpose. Don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe to this content. I have been thinking about this since I first saw this. I have been seeing so many different programs and shows and all these things to either agree or disagree with one side or the other. And I wanted to just kind of break down this debate. I don't really like debates. I don't like to debate, but we're gonna look at this. I'm just gonna get right to it. I'm not gonna waste any time today. I'm tired. I really don't feel like doing this today, but I'm here. Praise the Lord. We here, and we gonna do it. So we're gonna listen to Candace and Princella, the Queen Maker. I like her. I don't agree with her theologies necessarily, but I like how she talks and explains herself about things. The backwards hat is weird for a grown woman, but that's her thing. So we're gonna listen to her, and then we're gonna talk about it, and I'll share my thoughts whether I think we're in a patriarchy or matriarchy. So just stay tuned and watch.
So the denotative definition of patriarchy is father rule, and where positions of government are held majorly by men, where women are largely excluded. So 125 House of Representatives are female, and that's only about 25%.
Right.
And only about 28% make up Senate, and 3.3% of Congress up until this date have ever been women. So by denotative definition, we literally live in a patriarchy.
Yes. So I disagree with that. So I think what this gets to, which is actually an important part of the conversation, is that people always think that where there is disparity, there's somehow inequality. And I actually reject that entirely. I think it's just a difference in what we're interested in. I think we're biologically wired, we're interested in different careers. And just because if we looked in the fashion industry and said, oh, well, it's being dominated by women, it wouldn't mean that, okay, well, that means that the fashion industry is a matriarchy and men have no sense. It just means have no ability to communicate how they feel in the fashion industry. I literally think that those numbers show that we're just biologically different. So I actually think politically, women have shown that they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right? If a bunch of women.
So before she goes deep into that, a lot of what they're talking about two different things, right? Princella is talking about the people who sit in office in Congress and legislation and things of that nature. Candace Owens is referring to regular world, the rest of the world, the regular folks, right? The common folks who rules among the common people. And so I just want to break that down because they're both right? Two things can be true. Two different things can be true at the same time. I believe Princella is correct in her statements that Congress is run by men. And I believe that Candace Owens is correct in what she refers to as things like the Me Too movement and things of that nature ruled by women. So let's just get more in depth with this. I forgot Candace Owens. She talked fast already, but I'm trying to get through this quick. So
get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream, generally speaking, let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that. If a bunch of men got together and were shrieking and speaking about women, generally speaking, the media would call them all white supremacists and say that we had a misogyny problem and that things were really wrong in society. Women are allowed to be more vocal in general about problems than men are.
Well, let me speak to that. When we're talking about government and media, these are two different things. So under the denotative definition of a patriarchy, by the percentages that are occupied in the government, which is majority male, defines us as a patriarchy. Now, what it comes to for capitalism, for marketing purposes, purposes and control for capital and revenue, that is a totally different conversation. But who's making the laws? I don't think that women are the ones voting to have their reproductive rights taken away, where you have rape, incest, and all of these things excluded to force women to be able to I don't think women in government would largely vote against their own interests because it's majority male. Patriarchy.
Okay, I think love that point. Are women allowed to vote?
Oh, of course they are.
Who's voting that patriarchy in then, out of curiosity?
No, I totally agree. And you want to know why? Because there are so many women who think like you. You submit to the idea of men ruling everything. And your ideology is spread across a lot of women who also falsely believe to vote against their own interests just to complain about it in the end. You know, earlier you said that, women would be much more happier working at home. But don't you agree that it's human nature to want things that you don't have?
So Priscilla's saying that women who vote in male, that it is okay. Women are able to vote. Women are the larger population of especially the United States, and that they're voting in the patriarchy. And because they're brainwashed, that a lot of them, because they think like Candace Owens, she says even though, okay, so what she said is contradictory, right? Oh, I don't think women would vote against their best interests. But you just said that women are voting in these men and they're brainwashed, like Candace Owens, basically what you're saying. So it can't be right. She just contradicted herself. Hey, Julie, thanks for coming through. It's either women will vote against their best interests or they won't. Because if women are voting in all of these men in power, how are they also, not voting against their best interests? How Priscilla puts it, because a lot of them think like Candace. And okay, I have to break stuff down and process it out loud, I guess, to see if I'm processing this correctly. But let's continue.
In the 1950s, which is something that you constantly bring up, it wasn't until 1994 that it was legally illegal to beat your wife. And so what we're dealing with is people wanting something.
It says she is referring to the 1994 Violence Against Women Act, which provides protections at the federal level for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes. Okay.
And then when they get it, they're not happy with it. And then they have to revoke that idea for something else. And so what you're saying is that women vote for these things because they have the same mentality as you.
Okay. So you're acknowledging that women have the freedom to vote.
Yes.
And you're saying that women are still existing mentally, even with the freedom to vote.
Correct.
They are voting men in because we are still victims of...
No, I don't believe in victimhood. I believe in lack of education and lack of knowledge, because one of the things that you also say...
Do you think that it could just be that more men are running for positions of office?
No, not necessarily. Because remember, the United States, the average reading comprehension of people in the United States is 6th grade. So we're not dealing with educated people. Lack of education is the cause for what we see in the world. And if we educate the women better, because a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And if she reading and comprehending at a 6th grade level and popping out a lot of kids, because the brokest people in the world pop out the most kids. So if we have those people voting, of course they're going to vote against their interests, because they're voting for some utopian society that will never exist.
Okay, so that's why you think Kamala.
So folks be just talking because I hear on one hand that women are the most educated. Women they're the ones filling the colleges. Women are the ones with the most degrees, and they're the ones with their, that women are the most educated is what I'm hearing on social media. Right. But now she's saying that women are the least educated. Therefore, because they're the least educated, they are voting against their best interests, and they're voting for a utopia that will never exist. And they talk more about this. They the people on the panel, the feminists, none of them really agree with anything the other one says, because they vote each other out so quickly. So they know that each and every one of them are full of doo-doo. So, but this woman, Priscilla, let me cut to a clip of her.
Lost.
This ain't even about Kamala.
Well, you're talking about.
So this woman, she's currently a lesbian. She used to be with men. She has kids. She used to be with men. So she recently I did a reaction that she had a revelation that how selfish women are, because she's dating women, right? From a masculine perspective. So she got to see how delusional women are, how selfish women are, And this is the most critical I've seen her of women, where she's realizing like, wow, women really are the issue in these relationships. This is a conclusion she came to. Oh, this woman who dates women. So I encourage y'all to go see that reaction I did with her, where she comes into this revelation that women are the problem. So her sitting here trying to defend women and say that, oh, women, we're in a patriarchy because women have no whatever. I don't know what her stance is really. She's contradicting herself, so I don't know. But it's interesting. It's very interesting to me. So let's continue with this.
Women, no, but we had an opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a male running and we had a female running, and we actually showed that Trump increased the amount of women who voted for him, right? So I'm asking you, do you believe that the reason that happened was because women became less educated during that time?
They've always been less educated. Did you know that UNESCO says that that 2/3 of the 7.7 million illiterate adults is women? Illiterate. And we have 6th grade educated people voting. And guess who? Guess the dominant population? It's white women. And so guess what? Now you have to add a race element into that, which you already know exists, because we as Black folks, we ain't the dominant people voting people in. Okay, so now when we have to go into white supremacy and feminism, now you have to look at the mind of the people who actually have economic success and what they're voting for, because classism actually matters as well. So I'm sorry, but a lot of people vote based on their feelings and not based on policy.
Pause, guys.
That's right.
Yes.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return.
She is absolutely right. I absolutely agree with what she said right there. Yes, people vote by emotion and not what they actually know. You hear people mad at Trump for things that they're hearing on social media, not seeing the bigger picture. And this is the issue with a lot of people, that people don't see the bigger picture. But she's really not defending how we're in a patriarchy, right? She's basically saying women voted the men into Congress, and the only reason they voted the women into Congress is because of their lack of education. So, okay, regardless, she's only proving that we're still in a matriarchy, but okay, we'll see.
Thank you for the respectful conversation.
Through Rula, it's easier to connect with a therapist.
I like how Princella talks. I like the tone of her voice. She sounds very eloquent. I like how she talks.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great to meet you. I'm doing
Very
well.
nice to meet you.
So I view this argument as a matter of fact, right? This is a descriptive claim about the culture, reality we live in, and patriarchy being a system in which men hold the predominance of power in both political, economic, and social methods of organization. So
I want to take a second and let's Google patriarchy, because she's saying the denotative definition. What was that, my dog? The denotative definition. Let's see patriarchy. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So derived from the Greek word patriarchis. Patriarchy literally means the rule of the father, and is used to refer to a social system where men control a disproportionately large share of social, economic, political, and religious power. And inheritance usually passes down the male line. Okay, so now we have an understanding of patriarchy. Let's continue this.
S&P 500 companies, 90% of CEOs are men. Board members, 70% of CEOs are men. 70% of congressional members are men. Now, you may provide some sort of naturalistic argument to why that is, but what you're essentially arguing then is that there's a natural patriarchy, which I think feminists would all disagree with. We think that there's a clear social pressure as to why this is, and part of the evidence for that is since feminism's arise within our public culture, we've now seen an explosion of women entering these fields, but we have a long way to go. But fundamentally, the claim regarding patriarchy or matriarchy, we are so much closer to where we were just a few decades ago or a couple generations ago, where women couldn't hold a credit card, than a system where men can't hold.
So he's liars. He's a liar. Like what? We're closer. What? So he's basically saying women are closer to having less rights than they do now. What is he talking about? And he talking about he a feminist, bro. The whole movement is against you completely. What are you talking about? Anyway, these male feminists are just mind-boggling to me. I don't understand the thought process of a male feminist, but whatever. But he's saying we are closer to where we were 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago. How is this? Has anyone lost the right to vote? No. Is he referring to them changing the laws of Roe versus Wade, which is all they did was give the options to the state, which people are having abortion pills mailed to them. So I don't know what he's talking about. These companies are paying for people to fly out and have abortions. So I know that's not it. What is he referring to? I don't know. Let's continue watching to see where he's going with this. What?
The credit card. We're still much closer to that form of society.
Why would you say that we're closer to that? What do you mean by that? Did you just qualify that?
Because in terms of economic power, so for example, household wealth, women own 55 cents to every dollar a man owns.
Who controls household spending though?
Households,
you talk about how the money's made
yes.
in America. How is it being spent?
This says one survey found the gender wealth gap is 55 cents per every dollar. Another found it to be just 32 cents for every dollar. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis found that gap to be even larger for Hispanic and Black individuals. Interesting. Okay.
So it's primarily spent by women, as you've noted, but then the money where the profit's being generated, it's being generated by
Would you
men.
rather be the people that are spending and deciding on what the money's being spent on, or would you rather be the person that's just working to earn that?
Well, CEOs and board members aren't working. They own the shares, and they're making the profit.
Well, when you own profit is making.
You would much in a capitalist system, by definition, you would much rather be making the profit than spending.
I would much rather be spending your money than having to work for your money. Just so we are totally clear here, I would much rather spend your money than have to go out and earn your money.
Well, you're talking about wage laborers in terms of working, but in terms of
I'm speaking about spending power, right?
Sure.
But that matters. If 85 cents of every dollar, how that's being spent is being determined by women. That's power. That we can't say spending power is not power.
Why do you think that is the case? It's because women are often relegated to the role of doing grocery shopping, etc. Because for millennia now, or from millennia up until now, women were unable to enter the workforce and have economic political freedom.
So let's get into the reasons, because you brought up something that men are the people that are at the top of these companies, these Fortune 500 companies.
Right. And political power.
You're absolutely right. Why is that?
It's primarily because the women haven't broken the ceiling quite yet in terms of meeting men in terms of parity with these sort of power. But what we've seen with the explosion of feminism is that women have actually begun to enter these companies, have risen into both political and economic positions of power. But that continues to grow year by year, which shows that these social pressures are actually breaking apart as soon as feminism comes into play.
So what I would say is what that shows you is that women and men have different interests. And I think this gets into what I was saying, that just because you see a disparity does not mean that it's not just a disparity in what our interests are. That's what's being represented. I don't know why there has been this idea that women should want to aspire to work 80 hours a week in order to be on par with men.
Do you think that interests are innate?
I'm with Candace. Trends. I just watched this today and none of them really debated the claims. Yeah, they just talking. They're just talking. Yeah, women, because they weren't able to work and they had to do the grocery shopping. If you do the grocery shopping, you control the food that comes in the home. What? You control what's consumed. What? It doesn't say matriarchy to these people. Okay. Whatever. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. The what they're thinking and the different thought processes. But okay, let's continue with this.
Or do you think
I think the interests are innate?
So why is it then that, for example, in the 1980s, only a quarter of college graduates for women were now majority of college graduates are women? That shows that because of the way that social pressures have actually changed, women's interests are actually now changing too. A majority, I think, or at least half of law school graduates are now women. What we've seen with the explosion of feminism is that women have actually begun to.
Okay. Oh.